It was November 1950. The Korean War was in full swing when a formation of B-29 superfortresses made its way beyond the border to strike a hostile airbase. When the bombers sighted their target, one of the B-29s was suddenly struck by an explosion. The F-80 escorts reacted slowly and went after an unidentified aircraft. Nevertheless, it promptly slipped away without difficulty and left the escorts puzzled and amazed by the speed, high operating altitude, and impressive climbing ability of the aircraft. It was the first encounter of American aircraft with the USSR's first fighter jet, the swept-wing MiG-15, an aircraft that took the U.S. Air Force by surprise and quickly established air supremacy over the skies of Korea. Developed as a bomber interceptor to end American bombing raids, the MiG-15 was so effective at tearing down warplanes that the U.S. was forced to accelerate the development of the F-86 Sabre to reclaim air superiority again before the war in Korea ended. Stalin's surprise. In 1939, Soviet Union dictator Joseph Stalin ordered the creation of an experimental aircraft design department headed by Artyom Mikoyan and Mikhail Gryevich. The pair quickly rose to become the leading designers of Soviet fighter aircraft, leading to the Mikoyan-Gryevich or MiG acronym of countless warplanes. During World War II, Soviet intelligence officers and engineers meticulously studied every German, American, and British aircraft they came upon to develop more reliable and powerful aircraft for their air force. The Luftwaffe's Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter, prompted the Soviet Union to develop its own jet-powered aircraft during the early days of the Cold War. The Soviet Union developed the not-so-successful Yakovlev Yak-15 and the MiG-9, which employed reverse-engineered German engines. Mikoyan and Gryevich's MiG-9 had a lackluster design and unreliable engines. Despite being categorized as a first-generation jet fighter, it featured the straight wings of typical piston-engine aircraft, which affected its maneuverability and performance. Given that the Luftwaffe did not have the time to fully develop airworthy turbojets with a thrust of over 1,130 kilograms force, Soviet Aviation Minister Mikhail Khrushchev and designers A.S. Yakovlev, Mikoyan, and Gryevich suggested Premier Stalin buy the British Nene engines from Rolls-Royce. Stalin was skeptical. The war had ended, and the West and the East were now in conflict after the partition of Europe. The intent of buying the engines was to copy them. Stalin reportedly said, quote, "What fool will sell us his secrets?" To his surprise, the British agreed to issue a license to manufacture the Rolls-Royce Nene engines and other technical information, as long as the Soviet Union promised to employ them for non-military purposes. The MiG-15 rises. The British engines received the Soviet designations RD-500 and RD-45 and were upgraded by Klimov. Consequently, the Council of Ministers ordered MiG to build 2 prototypes of a high-altitude daytime interceptor capable of destroying enemy bombers. Mikoyan and Gryevich took the MiG-9 as an inspiration and added a 35-degree swept wing design with a tailpipe that returned to a swept tail, reminiscent of the German Me-262. The similarities with the Me-262 were also present in the nose mount intake and the high tailplane. The design also featured 2 wing fences fitted to each wing to increase airflow over the wing. The prototype was dubbed I-310 and employed a single Rolls-Royce Nene engine fed by a split-forward air intake. It had a length of 35.6 feet, a width of 35.4 feet, and a height of 12 feet. I-310 had an empty weight of 8,115 pounds and a maximum takeoff weight of 13,327 pounds. The design was fitted with a 37mm cannon and 2 Richter 23mm cannons. The armament was accommodated in an accessible weapon tray. The prototype was designated MiG-15 after its maiden flight on December 30th, 1947. It reached an astonishing maximum speed of 1,042 kilometers per hour at a height of 3,000 meters. Several modifications were made to the MiG-15 before entering service with the Soviet Air Force in 1949. These included an upgraded Nene 2 engine, redesigned wings, an ASP-1N gun sighting system, an S-13 gun camera, and underwing fuel tanks. NATO initially designated the aircraft as Falcon. Korean War. The first combat operations of the MiG-15 took place during the last days of the Chinese Civil War in early 1950. The Soviet Union deployed several MiG-15 units to train pilots from Mao Zedong's People's Liberation Army Air Force to fight aircraft from the Republic of China Air Force. Other MiG-15s with Soviet pilots helped repel attacks from the nationalists when they attempted to bomb Shanghai, shooting down several P-38s and B-24 bombers. The next military involvement of the MiG-15 occurred during the Korean War, following the crossing of the 38th parallel by North Korean forces in June 1950. After the initial momentum, the North Korean People's Air Force was driven back by veteran U.S. pilots from World War II, flying aboard P-51 Mustangs and F-4U Corsairs. With the situation quickly deteriorating, the Soviet Union decided to supply MiG-15s to China and North Korea. The Soviet 50th Fighter Aviation Division began training pilots near North Korea's border in August 1950. 16 air regiments of MiG-15s were prepared for combat. Many units were led by Soviet pilots aboard MiG-15s painted with Chinese and North Korean insignias to conceal their participation in the conflict. The MiG-15s were forbidden from crossing a line drawn from Wonsan to Pyongyang to avoid direct contact with American and UN forces. The aircraft always operated in pairs and constantly patrolled the area between the Yalu River and the Yellow Sea, later known as MiG Alley. MiG Alley. The MiG-15s were swift hunters and fulfilled their interceptor role with excellency. From November 1950 onwards, the aircraft decimated every B-29 bomber formation that ventured into MiG Alley. The interceptor squadrons generally operated in a 6-aircraft group split into 3 pairs. One would draw away American Sabres, while the other targeted them from behind. A third pair would stay at higher altitudes to shoot down lone aircraft or assist friendly forces about to be overwhelmed. UN forces were surprised by the combat performance of the MiG-15, as it easily outmatched the F-80, F-84, F-9F, and Gloucester Meteor fighters. The only real competition of the MiG-15 was North American's F-86 Sabre. According to Soviet sources, MiG-15 shot down over 1,100 enemy aircraft between 1950 and 1953. Meanwhile, US and UN militaries claim that over 660 MiG-15s were shot down during the war, including those flown by Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean pilots. The first combat encounter between US and Soviet pilots occurred on November 1, 1950, when a squadron of 8 MiGs intercepted 15 US Air Force Mustangs, resulting in the loss of several American pilots. Nevertheless, the US Navy avenged the losses when, on November 9th, the MiGs suffered their first casualty during an encounter with Grumman F-9F Panthers. Marine Major John F. Bolt became naval aviation's only jet ace of the conflict after shooting down 6 MiG-15s. Future astronauts John Glenn and Wally Schirra became aces after several encounters with the powerful Soviet jet interceptor. Marine Captain Jesse G. Fulmer also made a name for himself in Korea after shooting down a MiG-15 while flying a propeller-driven F-4U Corsair. Operation Moolah. During the Korean War, the Pentagon, CIA, Department of Defense, and the Air Force launched the classified Operation Moolah to obtain a fully functional MiG-15 through defection. The Joint Chiefs of Staff officially approved the plan in April 1953 and offered $50,000 to any North Korean pilot that flew a MiG-15 to South Korea. The first pilot to defect would receive an additional $50,000. All the defectors were granted political asylum, anonymity, and resettlement in any NATO country. While the armistice negotiations took place, the U.S. military announced the offer through shortwave radio transmission in Korean, Russian, Cantonese, and Mandarin. The broadcast said, quote, "To all brave pilots who wish to free themselves from the communist yoke and start a new, better life with proper honor, you are guaranteed refuge, protection, humane care, and attention. If pilots so desire, their names will be kept secret forever." Following the radio broadcasts and some leaflet drops over North Korea, MiG-15 flights dramatically decreased, likely in an effort to limit the risk of a pilot defecting during a non-essential sortie. That is, until September 21, 1953, when the U.S. finally got its hands on an intact MiG-15. Lieutenant No Kum-sok defected from Sunan Air Base and landed at Kimpo Air Base, South Korea, unaware of the $100,000 offer and the political asylum guarantees. He had fled for his life and had not heard of the broadcasts. Whichever the case, No's MiG-15 allowed the USAF to inspect the aircraft and compare it with its Sabre fighter and discover its weaknesses. Following the end of the Korean War, the MiG-15 saw action during the 1956 Suez Canal crisis, the Taiwan Strait clashes, and the early stages of the Vietnam War. Over 12,000 MiG-15 aircraft were produced and sold to numerous Warsaw Pact countries, paving the way for the MiG-17, which addressed the limitations of its predecessor and introduced radar, missiles, and afterburning engines. Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe to our Dark Skies channel for more content about Soviet aircraft and secret aviation programs, and check out our other Dark Documentaries channels. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos.